All right, folks, I think we're going to get started if you want to come sit down. So thank you all for coming. My name is Heidi Williams, and I am the founder of WEST, which stands for Women Entering and Staying in Tech. So thank you all for coming. Primarily what we do is cross-company mentorship for women in tech, and we're very proud to have a ton of amazing sponsors like LinkedIn and companies like Box and Zendesk and Twilio, and several of our panelists are from the companies that are our sponsor companies. So we're super happy to be able to put on events as well and give women an opportunity to network with each other and also build some of the horizontal skills that we focus on. They're helpful for everyone, regardless of what kind of role you're in. But women in technical roles, really, we're trying to help with career development and retention and helping folks navigate and find fulfilling careers in tech. So that's what we're all about. And thank you very much to LinkedIn for hosting tonight and helping us get all of this organized. So if you do want to hear more about WEST and aren't familiar with it, there's a couple of working group members. Maybe you could raise your hands. Shariana, Manasa, and Esther are all here if you have questions about WEST. So we are going to get started, and we have a fun agenda tonight. We have a 15-minute presentation. I'll introduce her in a moment. We have a panel, and we also have a mini workshop on actually building your personal brand. So we'll get at it from several different perspectives. So first up, let me introduce Amy Parnell from LinkedIn. She leads the user experience design team here, and she is responsible for the design of all of LinkedIn's consumer, international, and enterprise products, as well as internal applications and tools. So she has led 2 large-scale redesigns of the LinkedIn product suite, and her background includes many years of hands-on product design work, creating digital media and social networking products used by hundreds of millions of people around the world. How many people can say that? So very, very cool. Please welcome Amy Parnell.
Thank you, Heidi. Thanks so much for having me, you guys. I'm really excited to be here. This is my first WEST event, but I hope it's certainly not the last. And I love that we have a nice, intimate group here tonight. And I want to apologize in advance. I do have to run pretty quickly after this to get home to my kids. They're with my nanny right now. So I apologize for not being able to stay for the whole event. But I'm going to try to get through this quickly and maybe have a time for a couple questions afterwards. So let's see if that works. Yeah. Okay. So today, the focus is talking about personal brand. And this is such a great topic, obviously something that LinkedIn, we talk about that a lot too, in terms of how do we help people represent themselves to their best potential and communicate who they are. I personally kind of went through this about a year or so ago. And I started thinking about what is it that connects all of me to my work, right? So both the personal and the professional, how do I kind of bring that together and articulate what it is that drives me in my profession? So I'm going to share with you the process that I use to do that. And maybe there'll be some of this approach that you might be able to apply to as you start to think about what is your vision, what is your brand, and how do you connect who you are personally to what you do professionally. So for me, where I started was to identify the things that were my passions, right? And I thought, what are the things that I wake up in the morning really excited to do? I want to first focus on those things. And then I wanted to think about how could I turn that passion into a vision, and really a vision statement. And I'll tell you about how that leads to then brand. So someone I think that did this really well is my dad. My dad had a lot of quips over the years. There's some well-known ones up there in terms of ones that I still say to my children, actually. But one that always stood out is, if you can find something you love and get paid for doing it, that's success. For my dad, that was flying. He, as a kid, was obsessed with flying, whether it was model planes, paper planes. At a certain point, he learned how to fly planes. He started out flying crop dusters and eventually ended up flying corporate jets toward the end of his career. And now he's retired. Those are my daughters, and he flies a little model airplane. It's adorable. He hangs out with all the other retired pilots flying their model airplanes. He also is known for life's not fair, do what I say, not what I do. And then the one I love is don't do anything stupid. That was kind of his overriding advice to me. But finding something I love and getting paid for it was something that always stuck in my head. And I really admired that about my dad. So going back to vision, what is a vision? So a vision provides an inspirational picture. It can be about an organization, or it can be about a person or an initiative, but it's that inspiration that drives you. It's essentially the North Star that you'll follow. And it's something short and succinct that you can remember and you can tell people quickly. And so why create one? Well, for me, the way that I've used this is it helped me evaluate my life. And I think most importantly, it helped me evaluate how I spend my time, because time is really the most precious thing that we have. And I wanted to make sure that the way I was spending my time really aligned to what I valued most and where I wanted to go in my life. And what I believe is that if you're really authentic in this vision, it will become your brand. So again, that gets back to passion, right? It's why it has to come from that thing that really drives you, that you care about. So I'm going to go through the steps that I used. I kind of did some research online, like how do I come up with this vision statement? It sounds really nebulous and kind of intimidating, right? So here's the process I went through. So like I said, I thought about what my passions are. I thought about that future state. So what was it that I wanted to accomplish in my life? When I pictured myself like fulfilling all these dreams, where would I be? What would I be doing? I drafted something and then I used that as a litmus test. So I started to think about how am I spending my time? What am I involved in? And does this statement hold water? Like, is it actually true to how I spend my time? Like I just said. So first, I'm going to take you through kind of how I did this and what these things were for me. So thinking about my passions, I didn't start with work. I didn't start with like, oh, work's my number one passion. I started with kind of what are the things that I get really excited to do when I wake up in the morning, right? And there's three things that first came to mind. I'm an avid snowboarder, love snowboarding. Like fresh powder will get me out of bed really, really early in the morning, and I'll drive long distances and all that kind of stuff through crazy weather just for like fresh tracks. My two daughters, Amber and Layla, like they're the light of my life. I'll do anything for them. I'll get up super early. And then that picture in the corner is me as a kid. I was like one of those crazy horse-obsessed girls growing up. So like there was a year where I would whinny instead of talking, and my brothers thought that I needed help. But I would do anything to get close to a horse, be near a horse, horseback ride, what have you. That was a huge passion for me. But also there was drawing and art. And so as I got a bit older, I started to really, lose track of time when I was doing artwork. And that was something that I did more and more of as I got into high school. So I started to do a data visualization of this as well too, just because I'm a dork, right? And so from birth to today, I started thinking about like what my passions were. These lines are a little bit faint here, but first off, horses. Like my parents joke that when I was born, the first word was horse. And then, in childhood and then as I grew up, drawing and artwork was a passion. I love drawing horses. Of course, as well, too, really good at drawing horses. You've never seen this, but it's really good. And then in my teens, I started getting into skiing, and then that transitioned into snowboarding. And then art, doing drawing and artwork and stuff started to transition into design when I got into adulthood. And then later in life, having kids. Like those were really the way it kind of stacked up. And some of these things have been with me through my whole life, and some kind of have developed over the years. So those are kind of the things I really kind of identified as my passion. And then I started to think about where did I want to go in life, right? This is an exercise I went through about a year ago. So, I started thinking about all those dreams I had growing up, and I realized like I've kind of achieved a lot of these things. I felt incredibly lucky and incredibly fortunate. I get to go snowboarding. I actually adopted a horse a few years ago, and I get to go ride her, and that's like a lifelong dream come true for me. And I've got these beautiful kids, and a family, which is something I always dreamed of having. So I kind of had this moment of like, well, what's next? And then in terms of art and design, like I'm so incredibly fortunate. Like I immerse myself in design every day at work, and I get to work with all these creative professionals who like blow my mind. So I started to almost have like a little bit of a crisis of like, well, where do I go from here? Because all my dreams, like I'm living them, and that's amazing. And then I realized that what's left then is to help like other people achieve their dreams, right? And I started to think about, well, why do I feel so rewarded coming to work? And why do I feel so rewarded spending time with my children? And it's that sense of helping fulfill their dreams in the same way that my dreams have been fulfilled as well, too. And really what was left in life is to start to expand that out for other people and at scale. So I drafted my vision statement, and it is to help people achieve their dreams. And when I thought about that, I thought, well, what it is, actually what I chose this picture for is makes me think of this kid down here, right, who wants to be where this guy is flying through the air. And I love getting this to there, right? And whether it's for myself or other people. And when I think about people, I include myself in that, right? Because I have to start here and make sure that I'm achieving what I need and my dreams. But it's also about my kids, my team, the people I work with, and also the people that we do this work for. In our case, it's the LinkedIn membership. And so then I started to think about, well, does this hold water, right? This is the litmus test part of this. Does it really shape what I do and how I spend my time? So I did another data viz, and I started looking at how I spend my time. And I looked at my calendar, and this is kind of a ballpark estimation, but it started to hold water in terms of how I'm spending my time. So the funny part is I actually spent a lot more time sleeping than I thought. But I'm literally dreaming, so dreams are coming true in this moment, right? And then, I spend a lot of time at work, and largely what I do at work is work with my team. I help coach and mentor other people, give feedback on designs. Like, I'm definitely investing in developing other people on my team, so hopefully making their dreams come true. And also, the membership of LinkedIn, right? Like creating products that help people connect to opportunity and hopefully find their dream job and pursue their interests outside of work as well too. Spending a lot of time obviously nurturing my kids' dreams. And then, sadly the smallest segments here are my personal hobbies and dreams, spending time horseback riding and snowboarding, but they still factor in and play a significant role. And so I started to think about, well, is this how I kind of ground myself in terms of time with my kids? Am I thinking about it in terms of, nurturing their interests? For one, it might be cooking. The other, she's obsessed with the cats. Maybe she's a veterinarian someday. We're not sure. She said she just wants to rescue animals, and her friend will be the vet. So we'll see. But it's really interesting now to kind of think about my family in those terms as well too. Like, okay, well, we're here as a way to help enable and connect each other with our dreams. I think about it in terms of my team, how we spend time together, how I spend time with them. These are a couple interns that are now full-time employees on the team as well too. So that's something that really drives me and makes me feel so rewarded by the work as well too. Another example here, as I kind of did the litmus test, I'm like, okay, there's Jessica on our team who, as you'll kind of see on our LinkedIn profile here, she started out working as a contractor for LinkedIn as a front desk receptionist, and through mentorship and guidance, we've gotten her in the team as first an intern, and then now she's a manager of our design systems team. So, I started to feel like, okay, I think this actually holds water. Like, I believe that we're actually doing this. And I do believe that we do it for our members as well too. These are some videos of LinkedIn members talking about how LinkedIn has helped connect them to opportunity. And Julie, who's here and leads our user research team, I mean, this is the thing that really drives us and connects us to our work, is hearing stories about how this platform helps enable people in a really meaningful way. So basically I went through all that and I said, okay, I think this works. Like, I think the thing that really grounds me, that inspires me about all these things in my life is that I can help other people achieve their dreams in the same way that I feel like I've been able to, and I can hopefully do that at scale for millions of people. What I do believe too is if you can authentically kind of arrive at this type of conclusion, it will become your brand. And I think the most important thing about a brand is it has to be authentic. And that's why I go all the way back to passion again, because you have to first figure out what you're passionate about, and then everything else will kind of fall into place. So I hope this helps you think about what your vision is, what your brand is and will be. Again, the 4 quick steps that I took to help get to this and to help codify it: passion, think about where you want to be in your life, think about that future state of where you've always dreamed that you would be at some point, draft it, and then do the litmus test. See if it holds water. See if it starts to really represent how you spent your time, how you invest in yourself, how you invest in others, and what really gets you out of bed in the morning and makes you feel excited. And again, if it's authentic, it will just be who you are. It will become your brand. And I think brand is professional and personal. I don't necessarily know that I draw the line between the two. And that's it. So thank you for hearing me out, you guys. Really happy to be here. I think probably have a few minutes. If there happen to be any questions, happy to take them. I think at first I felt uncomfortable with it, to be honest. It felt like bigger than I am in some ways, and I think I had to kind of just be at peace with hopefully that is who I am. I would say sharing that with you guys is kind of a vulnerable experience, right? Like I worry like, oh gosh, is that cheesy? Do they think that's really who I am? Does it sound like, I don't know, a commercial or something? I hope it doesn't. But I think that's something that probably was a surprise to me is once I got to that point, I almost felt uncomfortable with like communicating it to other people. So I hope you guys feel comfortable communicating yours when you arrive at that. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I've had people in my life like that as well too. I think generally I find they do have a thing, but maybe they don't understand how that thing connects to a professional connection. Really great friend of mine loves travel. That's what she lives for, right? Is to plan the next vacation. But she's struggled for many years to figure out how to connect that professionally. And she kind of had a job where she felt like, well, this job has nothing to do with kind of who I am or what I love professionally. She did eventually get a job in the travel industry, and suddenly it was like the world lit up for her. Like she's like, wow, this is, even though I'm not traveling all the time per se, it's in a realm of something that I really care about and can relate to, and feel personally connected to. So I guess I feel like everyone has to feel something for something, right? Like you have to feel like there's something you care about, whether it's food or art or watching TV or, gaming, whatever it is. So I think that's why it's identify how you like to spend your free time, right? What are the things that you think are really, really fun, where you lose track of time? And then can you find some way to get paid for it, as my dad would say? That to me is it's a very lucky thing. I know it's not true for most people. I think that's a very fortunate place to be when you can do those two things together. But to me, that's a great goal to have. Mhm. Is that it? Okay, great. I'm going to pass it back to Heidi. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'm very flattered. Thank you.
Thank you. That was awesome. I have to say, I was actually really excited for this event tonight because I'm not sure I've ever sat down and defined my personal brand, and I'm more likely to accept what other people define for me. So I love that there's sort of an aspirational piece about not just what's your personal brand of how you show up at work, but what work should you do based on what your personal brand is. I love that. So I think I've already learned something. It's very cool. So next up, we are going to do our panel. So we will get the chairs set up in just a second. Actually, let's do that. If we could get a couple people to help. Thank you. Awesome, you got it. Okay, cool. And we have some amazing panelists and moderator here. So very, very excited about that. I wonder if I hadn't rehearsed this, by the way. I wanted to introduce them. Could the panelists come up, and Mansi, and if you guys want to take a seat, and I will introduce you. And then I can point at who they are when I introduce them. Awesome. So first up, Mansi is from LinkedIn, and she is a technical program manager, leads the technical program management team here at LinkedIn. So very excited to have her moderating the panel. She has basically evolved into the TPM role based on her personality and passion towards planning on everything she does. And recently, she joined LinkedIn's Women in Tech Leadership Task Force to leverage her strengths towards planning and execution of LinkedIn WIT's external partnerships. So thank you for moderating today, Mansi. I'm going in order of my sheet. So Karen Catlin in red. So Karen and I actually, we've known each other for a long time now. I think when I was a summer intern, I first met you when I first got into software. So I would say my career in software was kind of accidental. I never intended to stay this long, and now 21 years later, here I am. So I'm sure it was in large part to having great role models like Karen. So Karen, after spending 25 years building software products, is now an advocate for women in the tech industry. She's a leadership coach, a keynote and TEDx speaker, and co-author of Present, a Techie's Guide to Public Speaking. She also does workshops, very cool, and she facilitates a women's forum at Stanford's Graduate School of Business. So thank you for coming, Karen. Dushka Sabata, did I pronounce that well? Close. Dushka Zapata. All right. So she is coming to us from Zendesk. So she is currently the VP of Communications at Zendesk, where she oversees public relations, internal communications, analyst relations, and content. So she's been in communications for over 20 years, running agencies and working with companies to develop their corporate strategy. Big highlights, 20 plus years of PR experience. She's written 4 books, has 95 million views on Quora, and the Holmes Report recently named her one of 25 innovators. So congratulations on that. Thank you for coming. Bobby Jo Price is here from Twilio. So she has used the grit she learned on the farm and as a low-income first-generation college graduate to find her way leading sales teams at some of the most innovative tech companies. So her focus and her brand have always remained on finding a way to use her position and experience to help others. A few of her proud accomplishments are co-founding a domestic violence victim program in a small town where domestic violence is not discussed, using her title as Miss Rodeo South Dakota to create a platform called Believe, which got her invited to speak at 30 middle schools across South Dakota about not giving into peer pressure. That's awesome. Publishing a research paper in a criminal justice journal on delinquency, and leading amazing sales individuals to become passionate, successful leaders themselves. So thank you for coming. Almost there. And Julie, also from LinkedIn, leads the user experience research practice at LinkedIn, and her team delivers insights to product teams across all consumer and enterprise products. And before joining LinkedIn, Julie practiced human-centered design as a consultant with teams around the world. So a very, very accomplished panel, and very excited to hear what you all have to say about personal brand and what it means to you. So I will hand it off to you, Muncie.
Thank you, Heidi. All right, so personal brand. It's a buzzword, right? But it's important, and we all will realize that it's needed everywhere towards getting a better job or to start your company, to get your career to the next level, to build some strong relationships, build some good friends. It's really needed everywhere. And I think all of us have a unique personal brand. We just need to realize it, make it a little bit more attractive, powerful, and more importantly, visible. So I think today we have a great opportunity to hear from these great successful women leaders on their personal experiences, and we'll dive into that. I'll just share a small personal experience before that. So I joined LinkedIn 2 years ago, and that opened up a floodgate for me to take some volunteering tasks in women in tech area, and I started taking on them. Just a few months ago, someone saw a strength in me and asked if I could take on a little bit of bigger role in terms of leadership to manage a bigger event and a partnership. And I stepped up and I did that. Through that, I also got an opportunity to do my first public speech. I did that as well, and I was fortunate to know about the West event, so I stepped up there, and I was just doing all this unknowingly. And today, one of my coworkers wrote to me, and her words were, "Oh, I'm so thrilled to see you moderating the panel, and this is really towards building your personal brand." And it was kind of eye-opening experience for me. I didn't realize this is how people are perceiving me. So probably for me, this could be a journey to start realizing what my brand is and to establish one. So this is just, my story and how I felt about this, like today, just before the event. I'll open it up now to this wonderful panel, and if all of you can share a little bit about your personal experience on when did you realize you need to have a personal brand, and how did you work towards building on it, and how did you come up with a good brand for yourself?
Go first. Okay, I'll get the mic. Okay.
You are holding the microphone.
I've got it. So years and years ago, I was working with a professional coach, and I remember exactly how she started talking about personal branding, and it was so simple, and it stayed with me, and it's been years and years now. But it was, a brand is a promise that you make, that you deliver on over and over again. And so whether that's a company and your company brand, it's a promise you make to your customers, or if it's a personal brand and it's the promise that you make to your coworkers that you bring to work every day. This is who I am. This is how I operate. You can count on me. I'm going to keep doing this kind of stuff. And that really helped me start realizing that, oh, I guess I do have a brand if I start thinking of it in those terms, and how important that is to my coworkers for me to be consistent with what I'm doing. And as a leader, as Heidi mentioned, I used to be a vice president of engineering. It's super important for people who are working in your organization or working next to you to know that they can count on you and rely on you for doing things in a certain way. My brand back then, I'm not sure it was very evolved, but it was something along the lines of, I always ran engineering services, so people could count on me to be very efficient and effective and drive forward the expertise we had to have in these different sort of service areas in the engineering team. Today, I think it's mostly called infrastructure engineering, but we didn't call it infrastructure engineering back when I was doing that. So there you go. Yeah.
That's interesting. I love that definition of brand that you shared. Our CMO and SVP of Comms defines, she kind of changed my life with this definition that personal brand is something that represents you when you're not in the room. And most of the most important conversations about your career are happening when you're not in the room. So it's important that you have that consistency, that you have it really crystallized, that you use the words, that your people know what you stand for. My personal journey is that is about leadership. I realized as I was moving into leadership positions that everybody was telling me that I had to develop a personal brand, and I just found this terrifying. I had no idea how to even go about it. I don't like focusing on myself. I'm a researcher. I focus on other people. So it was really, really hard for me. And it's funny, Amy left. I just told her this. She didn't know this before. She gave a version of that presentation that she gave today to all of user experience design earlier this year. And I had been working on my personal brand for like a year. Like, I'm geeky in a different way. I'm like word clouding things and like 2x2s and what are my qualities and strengths. And I was getting absolutely nowhere. But when she gave her presentation, my personal brand just popped into my head, and it was notice possibilities, create opportunities. That's what I do as a researcher. That's what I've done for myself. That's what I do for my team. And it just kind of came to me. I say it just came to me, but it came to me because I had been thinking about it and agonizing about it for so long. I just needed that right. I just needed Amy kind of to open my mind to what that might be and how she defined it, and it really inspired me to create mine. Yeah.
I agree 100%. So the personal brand, and that's what I was thinking when we were asked I was asked to be on the panel, is what is personal brand? And it is what people think about you when you're not in the room. And it's a little bit like reputation, right? But it goes above and beyond reputation because it's what you do intentionally. And my own personal story, I didn't even realize until I started thinking about what I was going to say on this panel, starts way back when, and when I was Miss Rodeo South Dakota, which, by the way, I never well, well, it's really funny too, which all of you have given me the strength to promote that. I have never promoted that. This is one of the first events I ever have because since I'm speaking to mostly a room of women, sorry, Mr. Glad you are here. Thank you. But I wasn't proud of that because people would make jokes like, oh, a beauty pageant. But I realized I learned so much from that experience, and it wasn't a beauty pageant. It was about speaking in front of thousands of people, riding a horse, promoting rodeo across the United States. And so I am holding that proud and holding it up, and you all give me the strength to do that. So, and I realized that we don't need clones in the tech world, and we don't need clones anywhere else. Each one of you needs to be a very unique individual, and you have a lot to add to by being unique.
I've got something to add to that. What I love about the Miss Rodeo thing, it's memorable, but also like you're famous for something. And that was like famous in a press-worthy kind of way, which is awesome. But many of us can be famous for something. And by famous, I mean like maybe you are the best engineer on your team at doing something. Like I'm the one who always figures out how to find those really gnarly bugs that are hard to fix, or I'm the one who always figures out some cost savings kind of measure. Like that's what I'm famous for in my role, and that makes me different than all the other people who do the role at my company. So that notion of what are you famous for, and you've got a big one there, and I think you should capitalize on it, but it doesn't have to be quite that significant either as an accomplishment. It can be something more down to earth as well, less press worthy, I'd say.
Well, thank you for letting me. You bet. One thing I wanted to add on that, though, is that when I was Miss Rodeo South Dakota, promoting rodeo was the thing. But I had a woman come and tell me, she's like, do you really want to use this opportunity that you have to just promote rodeo? Why don't you use this opportunity to promote something bigger than yourself and think about what you're passionate about? So I built that platform that was called Believe and talked across the state. But it was because of her pushing me to do that I did that. And one thing to remember, your brand will constantly be evolving. I had to evolve when I got into the professional world and got into an industry sales full of 60-year-old men when I was a 27-year-old blonde girl, right? So I proved myself, and I worked really, really hard to build a brand there. And then I got into tech. I had to build my brand again. The core is your authenticity. That never changes, and that'll help you get that next job by your current colleagues telling the new people that you're trying to promote yourself to all about you and how you work. But then it's your job then to create a personal brand in that new industry and that new job and that new company.
Hi, how is everybody? So I want to say that I object to the term personal brand. The reason I object to it is because I think it's really ego-driven. And I think that what we are trying to accomplish here and what we're talking about in this panel is really more about who we are than about something ego-driven. So I think that the term personal brand doesn't really represent us. What we are saying here is that it's important that you identify who you are. The second thing I want to say is that I'm just winging it. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have a collection of existential crises, and whenever I learn something that I think might be useful to others, I write about it. And that is basically what I do. So I can't sit here and claim that I know what I'm doing, and I can't sit here and claim that I have a brand. What I can tell you is that I'm pretty clear on who I am. And the reason is because I've tripped many times. I've made many, many mistakes, and I really like writing about them.
Awesome. I actually really resonated well with Bobby's comment when you said that, oh, now that you all are with me on this, I need to promote this even better. I think we should just talk it out, or network, or start talking to our teams and see how we get perceived, or ask for feedback on, hey, what do you think I'm good at? And I think that probably is going to help to kind of start this journey. With that, let's ask our speakers if they have come across any speed bumps, any hurdles in their careers, and how reinforcing their personal brand. I know it's you object to that, but I'm going to use that word. Has helped them to kind of bring it back on the track.
You want to go first?
Well, I want to object to your objection.
Please. I love that. This panel's getting good.
No, I don't really want to object to your objection. I think it's
I
awesome
love that
what
too.
you just said, but I think that it's a really interesting point that you're making, because I think that gets to the heart of what is authentic, because I think that is the exercise of a personal vision or a personal brand, is to like connect with that and then figure out how to express that. So I think we're actually vehemently agreeing, just like maybe using different words or different nuance. But obviously what you said like really resonated with people, because there's something about even using those words that feels inauthentic. That is a hurdle.
Exactly.
But we also live in a world where, gosh, everybody's doing this thing. So that was my struggle partly too. It was like, I'm like a deadhead. I'm not a corporate person. I'm not like I'm just not a normal person who works for a big corporation. I'm kind of a freak.
Let me just tell you,
So,
there's no such thing.
well, maybe that's it.
Normal doesn't exist.
I know. That's absolutely totally true, and you should call me on that. But it's just this feeling that like, okay, I have to do this thing. I have to kind of step it up and use this language and be this thing because that's what everybody's doing. So I don't agree or disagree with what you were saying. I think it's really, really, really interesting, and it's something I'll be thinking about for a long time.
I want to add one thing for you. Do you guys know the origin of the word relevance? We want to be relevant. Where does that word come from? What is the etymological origin? So relevance means comes from levantar, the Latin word for to raise. When you lift someone up, it makes you relevant. Relevant is connection. When you want to be relevant, it's less about the number of clicks that you're getting and more about what you're doing for other people. That's how you become relevant. Awesome. Over to you.
Well, I just want to add on to this personal brand because something that really bothers me, and I've been guilty of this a lot, and it's very prevalent in womanhood, I guess, if you will. It's the fact that when you're thinking about a position at your job and you see that one is available, a man will apply for that. You've seen the statistics, right? It's when he's, I don't know, 60% qualified, right? A woman will not apply for it until she's 150%. So we need to help elevate each other and have a personal brand, because then other people will come to you to say, hey, there is this job and I think you'd be really good at it. But if people don't know who you are, they can't come to you and encourage you to do that. So that's why I like the personal brand, but maybe we need a different word.
I like the different word thing. I do want to answer your question, which is, have we run into any hurdles? So I want to just mention very quickly that a few years ago, I have a terrible notion of time. So 3 years ago, is that about right? This is such a good question. So 3 years ago, I quit my job. I got on the bus to go to work, and I got this like moment of clarity, and I called my boss and I quit, and I walked away from my profession forever. Then I got another job, but that was like only a couple of months ago. Anyway, my point was, I got on the bus and I was like, what am I doing with my life? I don't feel connected to anything anymore. Again, the word relevance. And I thought, you know what? All these people talk about like, follow your passion, follow your interests, do what you love. And I'm not really sure what that is. The only thing I want to do is sit in my apartment and write. That's all I want to do. And I did it for 3 years. I just sit and wrote. And guess what? 2 years. Thank you. You know what happened? You know what happens when you leave your job and you sit in your apartment doing whatever you want for 2 years? Nothing happens, guys. You'll be okay.
I like sitting in my apartment, which is a house, but anyway, I like doing that too, and I have my own business now because I get to sit in my yoga pants most of the morning. And yes, but to Monsi's question, I had to rebrand myself, recast myself, re-whatever myself when I did a pivot in my career. And I pivoted from building products and being a VP at a large company to going out on my own and to become an advocate for women who are working in tech. Very different kind of work. And the brand I used to have of being a great leader, I think I had that brand, a good leader. I'll just say that, good leader at my company, didn't translate. And I used to introduce myself. I used to be a VP at Adobe, and that like people are like, big deal, you know. So I had to figure out how to rebrand myself. And part of what I do now, and I feel like my brand is actually my introduction, so maybe that's a different word we can use. How do we, what's our introduction? But I say very confidently now that after spending 25 years building software products, I'm now an advocate for women who are building those products. And then I say a little bit more. But I have to tell you, it took me years and years to figure out how to say it that concisely and to own the fact that I spent 25 years building software products. And part of that is because, and Heidi and Mitsuko, who are here and have worked with me, it's like, I haven't written a stitch of code except for HTML in like 25 years. I mean, over 23 years or something. I haven't been an engineer building the products in so long. But as an executive, I still can say that I helped build those products. And the only reason I realized it was okay to say that is I was listening to a podcast by Andreessen Horowitz, who has great podcast material. I was listening to podcast after podcast from them and realizing that there were a lot of very brash young male entrepreneurs who would go onto this podcast and just start talking about themselves in terms of, well, let me tell you what I've learned after building products here in Silicon Valley for 3 years. And then they would impart all this amazing wisdom about what they'd learned. And I just was like, I took a page, kind of a page from their book, and I'm like, if they can talk about how awesome they are after building products for 3 years here in Silicon Valley, I can own building products for 25 years, even though I wasn't the person actually writing the code. So that's how I had to change myself and really come to grips with that.
I have one more thing to add. Guys, raise your hand if someone around you is in any way promoting themselves and it makes you roll your eyes. Right? So whenever you think about talking about something that you did, think about how can I talk about what I did in a way that others will find useful or relevant. So think, how can I actually provide someone with the step-by-step of how I got here rather than just show off? What do you think you're more likely to find interesting and share? Something that actually worked for you, that was a step-by-step of something, or someone else showing off that you think you're going to share? Which one? Exactly. So think, I just went through this experience, whatever it was, divorce, loneliness, my kids leaving their home, a promotion, a demotion, I quit, I got fired, whatever it is, and go, how can I possibly make this useful for others? If you're not good at promoting yourself, do that.
Bobby again touched on how women kind of refrain from talking about themselves and, kind of showing their personal brand. So if we can talk a little bit more about how women can overcome this challenge, I think many of us will be.
Do you guys want to start? Or?
I thought that was directed at you. It was just
Oh, no, I
building
think
on
it's
you.
everyone.
What you said.
Yeah. A couple of things, because I think a couple things to start with is to reflect a lot on who you are and who you want to be. Amy talked about that a bit in her presentation, and really. Sorry, I heard a noise. I felt like it was a drum or something behind us rolling. I know, what is that? But really sit down and think about and spend time with yourself to figure that out. And then also do a lot of reading, and whatever industry you're in, read a lot and read outside of that industry as well, to be well versed and well rounded, so you can contribute to different conversations. And don't just read and then go on to the next article and read, because that's what I used to do. But stop after you've read something, even maybe read some of the comments to get some different opinions, and then think about what your opinion is and have an opinion on different topics. That's something that I was guilty of for many years. It's just I read, but then when I was in a conversation, whether it's at a party or a work event, I wouldn't have already formulated my own opinion, and I couldn't really add. And that's not adding to helping other people understand who I am and what my values are. So that's where I would start.
Oh, I like that. And I'll add to it also is, don't forget to have basically a posse who can do that for you as well in terms of promoting your brand. And what I mean by that is, for example, I coach a group of women at a tech company in San Francisco, and they all got together. They've known each other very well through the coaching that I do collectively, and they started working on their brands. And what they were able to do, because they all knew each other's brands, it's a group of 15 women, is they started promoting each other on the company Slack channels, just in different conversations, just looking for opportunities to brag about someone else in their group, not themselves, but someone else, using that brand to reinforce what the value is they're bringing to their company. Super powerful, super supportive. And so if you can nurture a posse and some friends to do that for you, it comes across, we women get this penalty when we brag about ourselves, a likability penalty that the men don't necessarily have. They don't get the same penalty. We're supposed to be humble and modest, and the men can do it in a different way. So if you get someone else to brag on your behalf and use that brand to reinforce things, it goes so far.
Be so good at what you do that people around you recommend you.
I think that's great. I think organizational influence, or just influence on people who you encounter on an everyday basis, is really, really powerful. There's something really interesting going on in this conversation about the tension between being self-promoting and bragging, but also acknowledging your accomplishments. And for me, that's been hard for me. I come from a family that's from the Midwest. We're immigrants. My dad never wanted any of us to be ostentatious or stand out. So we were just instilled with this idea that and I think it's true that that seems to be mostly also particularly true for women, but that's just my upbringing as well. So it has been, even to this day, it's hard for me to, like, I just got a promotion. I know. Well, I know, I'm going to own it. But when it came time to like update my LinkedIn profile, I was like, well, it feels a little weird to me. But I'm not actually bragging because I earned that through a lot of hard work. So I think there is, and we talk to members who, that's part of my job. My team's job is to talk to members a lot about their use of LinkedIn, and that's something that a lot of people experience. Is I want recruiters, I want coworkers, I want potential employers to know what I've accomplished, but I feel really uncomfortable putting it all out there on LinkedIn because it feels like I'm bragging about it. So there's just this tension there.
So two things. One is I encourage everyone here to practice taking a compliment. If someone gives you a compliment, just take it. Bring it on. Whatever. Give me one.
I love your boots.
Yes. Thank you. They're sparkly. It's so hard to take compliments. If we haven't taught ourselves how to brag, it's because from the very beginning we're like this. Practice letting it in. Also, like nice boots. Like how honest do you think that was? Even if I asked for it, right? You mean it. So many people mean the compliments that they give us. Take them.
I love the.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yay to your dad. They gave it to you. Take it, whether you believe it or not, is your problem. Whether it's true or not, who cares? My dad's a psychiatrist, by the way. Yes. I love him.
And I'll add, building on your dad, it's like it's thank you and stop. Yes. Boop, zip it, right? Thank you.
Yeah, no, women do the hedging language.
I got it on sale.
Oh, come on. They're nothing. They were the first thing I found in my closet.
Yeah, or typically, oh, I have had that for ages. It's old. I just wore it today, All right. I think we can open it up for questions from audience since you kind of kicked it off. Yeah, comments. We can totally do that. If you don't have enough questions, I can ask one more question. But let's see what our audience has to say.
You even get a microphone.
Well, I've never thought about brands, so this is something completely new. Where do you use it, or what's the whole? I mean, yeah, I get it. I can think about it. There may be something I can come up with, but what's the use in my day-to-day life? Like,
Do you want me to start?
Probably Joe wants to talk.
You have a brand already. It's you. And when everyone leaves tonight, some people will remember you, and they're going to remember you for something, right? And so you're using it every single day, whether you like it or not. And so it's important to remember that. And especially when you're going to events like this, is think about how you want other people to remember you. And it's not about getting the most number of business cards. It's about having a meaningful interaction with someone and what value you can bring to that other person.
Raise your hand if you've seen the movie Coco. You have to get to the movies. Anyway, I will try not to spoil it. I'm from Mexico, and the movie is from Mexico, from our most important of holidays, the Day of the Dead. I'm totally digressing. Let me bring it back. Memories. How do you want to be remembered? To me, my identity, and when I think about what matters to me, when I think about what my priorities are, I think a lot about how I want to be remembered after I'm no longer here. I don't mean in this room, I mean in life. Like, what do I want to leave behind? And I find the question for myself, what do I want to leave behind, to be incredibly, it reminds me what my priorities are. So to me, my identity, I'm shying away from using the word brand, but my identity is about me knowing when I have a lot of things to do and I don't know where to start, it helps me prioritize. What do I want to leave behind?
And shorter term, I'm a huge believer in sponsors for people, in terms of sponsors can open career doors for us that we don't even know maybe exist. And if we stay heads down and just do our work and not have this identity, I'm using your term, identity, not have this identity that other people can talk about us on our behalf, basically, then we might not have those sponsors. So if if your brand is something, and I just want to make it very kind of actionable or something, but let's say you're the one who always represents the customer in any conversation, regardless of what your job is, then someone might be, maybe there's some opportunity for someone to go on this awesome round the world customer trip, or something. Like, I know just the person that she always brings up the customer in every interaction. We need to bring her along. Okay, so that's what a sponsor would be able to, if you promote your brand enough, your identity, if people know who you are and what you uniquely do, that sponsor is going to think of you when that kind of opportunity opens up. So that's how I would use it short term.
A comment, then a question. I think it's very important to have identity because your younger male employees will co-opt it and take credit for it. And unfortunately, that happened to me because I'm from the Midwest. Put your head down. You never complain. It's all about the work. Cautionary tale in the Valley. They are saying your words and they take credit for it. Too much of a giver, you also have to take as well. So the sponsors, what I learned, they're the ones that speak when you're not in the room. And they're like, actually, it was Jen who had that idea 3 years ago. The other thing I would say is one of my best comments I ever had, I had this very tough VP. Whenever I wanted to hire someone, he would get the last word, right? And he always said to me, remember, do you want to be stuck in an airport for 5 hours on a layover with this person? They have to be interesting, not just hardworking. And that was always in the back of my mind, like, sure, table stakes, you have to have this skill, that skill, the other skill, but are you interesting enough that I want to go to China and have my flight be canceled in Chongqing, which happened, and we still have something to say 8 hours later? So be interesting. And then my question is, on those comments, did you have a point in your career where you had to correct because maybe you were misled or you didn't have a sponsor or you were rising, but then the organization changed and you realized you had to find a new sponsor, something around getting past an obstacle?
So I have the mic, so I'm just going to respond to comment number 2, I think it was, and then maybe someone can answer your question. I have a big problem with that. And I'm going to disagree with you. And the big problem I have with that, is this person interesting enough that you'd want to be okay to hang out in an airport if your flight got canceled? That is this looking for someone who's going to be a culture fit that I like hanging out with, and the bros are looking for other bros that they can be talking about their bro thing about, okay? So we have to...
I mean, someone who has something new to tell you, something interesting.
I think I would stay away from that, and I would ban that from any interview conversation myself. As an advocate for women, I do not like hearing that kind of thing. To me, it screams, I want people who I like to hang out with, who are like me and are liking the same type of stuff. So thank you for being receptive to my feedback. I appreciate that. Hopefully someone else can answer, though, the question of doing the pivot. And
Can you repeat your question? The piece around... Sorry, I was rambling with the comments, as we used to say at my company, where you have a comment, then a question. So it was, you were on a groove and maybe through an org change or your sponsor left. How did you re-find your groove, or how did you get people advocating for you when maybe there was a lot of noise around you? In the case of me, it was many reorgs, and it was hard to get through the noise that I was still relevant. I left, thankfully, but it was awkward. I didn't have the sponsors anymore.
I think it kind of goes back to the first question that we had about what's the point of having this crystallized identity. I think when you are grounded like that, it just helps you go home and not totally freak out about what's happening, and you know that I'm going to be okay. I can go sit in my house or apartment for 2 months. Like, I know what's important to me. And then also other people know what's important to me. So if I lose a sponsor, if there's a reorg, somebody's going to know that I'm the person who's always advocating for the customer. I'm the person who's always looking for product opportunities or new opportunities for people. And that's going to just help plant those seeds that will help me navigate those choppy waters, because we're all going to have them, right?
I love that. I want to say yes, and this is a little tiny bit unrelated to the question, but related to what you said, and I want to add something. And that is one of the most sort of like turning points, the most drastic turning points in my life had to do with the fact that I realized that I was the adult. I am the decider. So the less I blame whatever, the reorg, the circumstances, the unfairness of life, the storm, the weather, my internal meteorological conditions, the drama, the more it's just, this is me. This is you and me. That's it. I'm the one here. The more I am accountable for myself, the more power I have. So I cannot recommend enough that whenever you think someone or something else is to blame, that you reframe that shit. Is this being taped? Did I just say shit? Yeah. Sorry. Twice? Sorry about that.
More of a comment also.
Oh, more questions. Sorry.
Oh, more questions.
So it sounds like from your answers that self-confidence is at the root of this thing that we're calling our personal brand. And I guess it's more of a cultural thing that as women, we don't feel comfortable, or people don't want us to feel comfortable of being in charge of ourselves and or being the pilot of whatever it is that we're doing, and then it kind of reflects on us that we don't want to talk about our accomplishments, or we don't want to post on LinkedIn about what we've done even though we've earned it. So I mean, it's kind of, we have to reinvent the wheel, as they say, and just I don't know if there's any examples that you have as women have reinvented the wheel in your own way.
I hope this answers your question, but when I post a lot on social media, which I feel I have to promote myself and my business, and I've learned how to do that. And each time I do it, I try to think, am I helping someone else by doing this? And I try not to make it just about me. And now probably some of you might go and look and say, let's see if Karen was actually right. I don't know, because there's probably, but like this morning I struggled with this. There was an article in the New York Times, I believe it was published this morning by Claire Kane Miller, about basically that for the training, for true diversity and inclusion to happen in Silicon Valley, we have to change how we're training people and have it be not just unconscious bias training, but more about bystander training. So if someone's seeing some infractions, I'll call them, happen, if you see something, say something. Yes, in the workplace. What was that? Say something. Yep. See. So anyway, this came about, and so one of the things I do in my business is what I call ally training, ally skill training, and which is really bystander training. And so I was like, I have to give myself a shout out here and point people to my workshop page. And how am I going to do that in a genuine way? And I took a breath. I went and had some breakfast. I thought about this some more, and then I decided to turn it around in terms of, hey, this great article. Thank you, Claire, for for pointing this out. I teach ally skills training, and I would love feedback on my offerings to see if that would help you with your organization to offer something like this. So I was trying to promote myself, but still be open to feedback and show a little vulnerability that I don't have it all figured out yet. So think about it, trying to root any of this bragging about our identity, root it in generosity. How can you help someone else with what you know, what you're doing, what you've figured out?
So just curious, what are all of your own personal brands or personal identities, and how did you come to that brand or identity?
I'm a writer, and I accomplish that by writing a whole lot.
I'm someone who I had this down before. See, it's great. I knew someone was going to ask this question, and I love it that you asked. I was like, if we went all night and no one asked this question, then something went awry. About grit, perseverance, authenticity, and about helping others be leaders.
I'm an advocate for women who work in the tech industry, which means I'm a leadership coach, a speaker, and a writer.
Okay, so I mentioned mine earlier. My little catchphrase is notice possibilities and create opportunities. And I was an art historian by academic training, and that's what fascinated me about art was all it's noticing the different choices that people make and what are the how does that play out in the built world when I came into the world of design, and then studying people as part of that. So those 4 words just really tie me to who I was as a little girl, what thrilled me as a student, and what I continue to try to do as a leader for myself and for people. So kind of back to the question about confidence too, confidence is just because you get up and talk in front of people and share your ideas, we're all working on confidence. Like, at least I am. I can speak for myself. Like, it's a constant work in progress. The thing that I've realized over time is that I don't have to be confident to get up and talk to you, but I have to know that I'm safe. Like, nothing bad's going to happen to me if I say the wrong words or I don't share my idea right exactly. That's fine. I know who I am. I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. And the rest of it is all going to be fine.
So my question is regarding positioning of your personal branding. Do you need to design against stereotypes?
Do you need to design against stereotypes?
Just one quick parenthesis. She also had a question, so I think she should
That's
have
true.
the last question.
Okay.
Sorry, I just want to raise her hand a couple of times.
Oh, okay.
You're a great advocate for women.
That girl with the orange. Don't let her not ask her question.
I wouldn't let her down.
So I'm sorry.
Wait, you need to answer.
Stereotypes?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, I'll say when I coach women on building their brands, what I often find them doing is emphasizing things. It's like that's the table stakes for that role. That's like you have to bring that ability. Like I'm an engineer who is really awesome at embracing new technologies as they're made available. Like every engineer needs to embrace new technologies. That's not your brand. So I'm not quite answering your question, and I'm not sure I can about stereotypes, but I try to lift them up and think about what makes them unique and different than everybody else. And that's hard. It's hard for people to find that in themselves. Does someone else have?
Well, I think the best way to design against stereotype is to just be authentically who you are. And I don't know, you're not designing towards it or away from it. You're just, I don't know.
The only thing I want to add is I wouldn't design anything against something. Like, you don't really want what you don't want to be your driving force, right? You want your driving force to be what you do want. So I would operate more in a what is it that I want rather than what is it that I'm against. Your turn.
I want to add something to this. I might have a different stereotype than a lot of people here, but one of the reasons why I never told people about the Miss Rodeo South Dakota is because I didn't want to be known as a blonde bimbo, right? And so I hid it because people would take it wrong, and that's why lately I've been I need to embrace this and explain what it entailed. And so whatever you think the stereotype is for your ethnicity, your gender, whatever it is, just be strong with who you are and add value. If you're adding value, then people won't think of you negatively.
I'm not yet, that achieved person in my career, right? Probably just a starter in terms of realizing, what my brand is and everything. And I would say it was a challenge for me when I was asked to give my bio. I started thinking about, okay, what should I bring out in my bio? And to relate to one of the previous questions, I mean, I just looked at what I am good at in my day-to-day job and how my personality has helped me. I'm a planner, and I really take planning seriously for everything that I do, and how I'm using it in my day job and now to also to plan things for community. So maybe that's how I'll slowly start expanding on like basic strength that I see in me.
Thanks for giving me the chance. Thanks for noticing, Dishka. Guys, have any of you had to change your identities with the same set of people? I know you mentioned you had to redefine yourself, but that was across a different group of people. But what if you're in the same organization, the same peers, and now you want to establish a new identity? What are some things that work, and what are things that don't work?
Oh boy, I'm just going to take this one first.
Yeah.
You don't change your identity, not for anyone. If I have a performance review and that person who gives me that performance review wants me to be a better version of myself, if they want me to be someone I'm not, I'm out of there so fast, the door gives me whiplash. Don't ever change who you are.
Sorry, I guess add on to who you are. So what if you want to go from being an engineer to then going into leadership roles? How do you
That's changing your action. So that's changing what you do, not changing who you are. Right? So let me just tell you why this distinction is really important, and then I'll give up the microphone. Because you can't confuse what you do with who you are, because that's why we go through so many identity crises, right? Oh my God, now I'm a mom. What does that mean to my career? Oh, now I'm a VP. What does that mean to my friends who used to be my peers? Oh my God, now I'm my kids have left, and now I'm no longer a mother. So what's left of me? And the answer is you're all still there. Who is it that you are? And that's why this whole conversation about identity is so important, because we can't let ourselves be completely lost every time we change what we do. Do you see what I mean?
I love that. Yet day to day, I think maybe we just need to change your question. And how do you create new awareness of something that you're doing? So I'm going to shift away, because I don't disagree with you, but I think there's some very pragmatic things, and I certainly have had to do that. I, like Mansi, I'm a planner, and I was a program manager at one point in my career, and I loved program managing, and I took the best notes for any meeting. I had this reputation that I was a good, yeah. And I loved getting things organized. In fact, at one point, I was interviewing a lot of program managers, and I actually wrote a job description that I would have applied for. And one of the job requirements for a program manager was you must have an organized sock drawer, okay? Because that's what I wanted. I wanted people like that had that brand or that identity, even though they would never really share that. But I wanted to draw those people to the company. But guess what? As I moved and became a vice president, do you think it was awesome that I had this reputation of being the best note taker at the company and the most organized person? And people, no. So I had to leave that behind, even though I loved doing that type of work and it was very core to me. I had to de-emphasize it. And in hindsight,
how do you do that with the same set of people who know you as that person?
Yeah. So in hindsight, I'm not sure, I didn't know this at the time, but in hindsight, you can start showing thought leadership around this new area in terms of, and I'm a public speaking geek now. I never used to be, but I have a book on it. I teach public speaking. I love public speaking. And it is like a multivitamin for doing exactly what you want to be doing here. You start speaking about your new role, your new approach to things. You show a different side when you have the mic and you're talking about some project you're working on or something you've learned. So that's one way. I'm sure there are many others, but I really want to, even though public speaking can be incredibly scary for us, for many of us, it really can be something to be utilized here.
I think that's wonderful advice. And I'll just add my personal experience of kind of evolving from an individual contributor to a leader of a team of about 30 people now, is that I found that shift was actually harder inside my mind than it was externally, because people around me were giving me these different roles. They had faith in me that I could do this. They saw those things in me. What was hard for me was to say, okay, now you have to see yourself a little bit differently and take that crystallized version of who you are and internalize it. And it was a much more internal journey for me, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, and I want to answer a question too.
Okay.
Do you
Go
want to go
ahead.
first?
Yeah, Linda, you go first.
We are a very polite group, aren't we? Passionate but polite. So yeah, pragmatically, I would, if you want to move into a different department, and like I lead a lot of sales teams, and people might want to be account management or marketing engineer, and it's important to talk to as many people as possible. Talk to your manager, get his or her advice, talk to the manager of the team you want to move to, and see what they're looking for in that person, and then start working towards either showing off those skills that you already have or growing those skills that you need to learn, and start hanging out with the people on that other team to learn what they like about it, what they don't like about it, and what tips and tricks you can pick up, and then let that be known, right? Start telling people that this is what you want to do, and it's absolutely achievable. It might take a little bit of time, but if you keep working at it, you'll be really good at it.
You said something, and now I can't remember what it was, that reminded me of something else, and that I'm going to now go with whatever that something else was, but I swear this was connected. Do you remember when I told you that one of my pivotal moments was when I was like, I am the decider? So my second pivotal moment was, I'm limitless. And let me explain what that means. I cannot defy gravity, for sure, but there are so many things that I think about myself that are actually not true or that are fluid. So maybe I'm a planner, but it's really not going to stop me from being somebody else. And there are so many things I believe about myself or that I believe to be true that actually aren't. So to close this panel off, I want to say that the least you can do for yourself is eliminate the limits that only exist in your mind.
Thank you all so much. That was an amazing panel. I love the back and forth. We can stay here all night as long as we're
Absolutely,
gonna have a
very
sleepover.
very
It's gonna be great.
passionate, very passionate panelists here.
It was awesome. I know. It's nicer than my living room, by the way. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And we actually have one more thing, which is we all are going to do a mini workshop on developing our own personal brand. So I'd like to invite up Casey, who is going to lead us through a fairly organic process, but we're very excited about this. Thank you, panelists.
Oh, thanks. Does anybody want to pass out papers and pens?
Yeah, we can do that. Cool. Are you okay with having these chairs here? Yeah, no.
It's fine. The chairs can stay. They can hang out. They're enjoying the show. It's all fine. Hey guys, I'm Casey Mack. I am an engineering manager here at LinkedIn, and I'm just going to lead you through this fun little workshop. It'll be quick, I promise. I know we all want to get home. I want to get home. So we just heard some amazing ladies with some amazing stories tell us some amazing personal brands and pitches. I pretty much think about this much like an identity, kind of like your elevator pitch. It should be succinct. It should be something that you can tell people really quick in an elevator. If one day I just pop into an elevator and I'm late for a meeting, which is most days, and Jeff Weiner, our CEO, just happens to be in the elevator, what do I tell him I do? And it better be good. It better be exciting. It better be interesting, and it better stick in his mind, until long after I've left that elevator. So again, what is your personal brand? What do you tell the CEO? What do you tell whoever? What do you tell Oprah when you're in the elevator with her? Because that's going to happen. What do you tell them that you do? What do you tell them you're about? What makes you tick? What makes you get up in the morning and come to work? And if that doesn't coincide with what you're doing, then more thoughts and planning and things should follow. But you should all have a worksheet here, and there's some quick tips and tricks on how to improve your LinkedIn profile, because this is LinkedIn, and how to rock your profile. But then there's some writing prompts on the back on maybe to get the wheels moving. how do you even start this process on thinking about it? So if we all want to take a couple minutes and brainstorm some ideas, chit chat, come up with something, and then we'll share them around the group.
And feel free, so think about it for a few minutes, and then maybe you can get together with a few people at a time and kind of share thoughts and insights. And I really liked the thinking about your LinkedIn profile, thinking about the themes of things you've done in your life. I think I didn't realize till later in life that I have a giant theme of platforms and working with developers. And I was like, oh, guess I build platforms. I didn't know that before. So
that's a good point. So I used to have like a few different stories on my LinkedIn profile until about 4 years ago, where I really redid it. And then all of a sudden I got a job here. But like way back in the day, way back when people used to have these things called resumes, and they were like pieces of paper that you gave to recruiters and stuff. Some people, and myself included, would have multiple resumes, different ones geared slightly, telling a slightly different story towards what you were trying to apply to. I'm a weirdo in that I am really good at design and engineering. And so I used to have like a design artist, focused resume if I was applying to a more design job. And then I had an engineering kind of tech coder resume if I was replying, or applying to a job like that. Within the last 4 years, I've been fortunate enough that those kind of came together, and now it's the same story instead of two different ones. But ideally, like your resume, your LinkedIn profile should kind of sort of tell a story about who you are, what you do, what you're passionate about, and the jobs that you've held, hopefully, if you're lucky, kind of reflect that. And if they don't, it's okay to, engineer that a little bit. Not every job I've had in my entire life is on LinkedIn, believe it or not. There's a whole lot of weird shit that just fell off, and now it's all tech and it's all pretty. You don't have to put everything on there. Like when you're first starting out, you've got a lot of just everything. Like when you're right out of college, you're trying to throw everything on there. You're trying to put everything in your resume, and you've got every class project and every class you've ever taken. And then once you get some work history, all that shit can fall off. You don't need to put that on there anymore. It's fine. Nobody cares what classes you took in college. Nobody cares what grades you got. It's fine. Gear your resume, gear your, personal brand towards what you want to do. And ideally, recruiters will pick up on that. And then you, lo and behold, you'll just start doing what you want to do.
Cool. So go ahead and work on this for, 5 to 10 minutes, and feel free to talk amongst yourselves if you want to share your thoughts with each other, and then we'll ask for volunteers to share with the group.
And if you need a glass of wine, a beer, or food to help your thought process along, please, we have so much food.
I mean, we know what the Balmer's Peak is, right? Have you guys heard of the Balmer's Peak? Not many engineers in here? Okay. I mean, in theory, you get more creative the more beers you have, but there's also like, yeah, right. It goes down after so many beers. It's a parabola, whatever. Graphs.
Cool. All right, we'll collect back in about 5 or 10 minutes.
I think maybe I'll turn the recording off because